All right, howdy folks, and welcome to another dev stream. Having some issues with the microphone. Not sure what the problem was. I mean, everything was connected. All right, howdy folks, and welcome to
we are
another
not
dev
muted.
Okay, that happens like every time. All right, so hopefully the microphone is good. I see that it's receiving input, so I think we're good. So yeah, it's been about a month since I last made a stream, and a lot of it has been just about a little bit of like UI updates, a little bit of a little bit of the pre-alpha testing, but it hasn't really happened a whole lot just because there hasn't been a lot to test. But the main thing that I want to kind of go through today is a little bit about the button help in the UI, but mainly just the Gamecast, which is what the title of the stream is. So let me switch my display to the actual game. That's not it. There we go. Okay. All right. So mainly what I did with the UI, pretty minor, is just these little button hints. I changed it to where it actually shows you the buttons. When you have an actual gamepad plugged in, it's gonna show you something that looks a little bit more like an actual controller button. But when you have just a keyboard plugged in, it'll show you what looks like keys. So when you go to different screens, it'll obviously change. And then you can press G to get a little bit of a summary of what the screen is, and of course all the button hints in one place. So it looks like Prodigy is in. Let me move this here. I don't have to turn all the way over there. Some room. All right, Prodigy says, "Hello friend, love the idea and excited for the game. If you ever need testing, I would love to help." If you're not a part of the Discord, that is where the testing group is, and the link to the Discord should be in the description. So first thing you got to do is jump over there, and then we can talk some more. He also says, "Looks beautiful and old school. And do you have to use a controller?" No, you don't. It is keyboard. I do have my Logitech gamepad here. You can use either controller or a keyboard. It's the same kind of input, it's just shaped differently. So as far as the actual UI design, I like the way it looks. It's very, 98 ESPN, obviously. I probably will change that a little bit, or maybe a little bit more than a little bit, just because I'm a little worried about being too close to the inspiration. Not everything is lifted from the inspiration, but obviously the title bars are pretty indicative, and a few other things. I'll probably end up changing some things about it later on, but this is what we got to work with now. Let's go to the Gamecast. So once you get through the press conference, which I can just skip because I am the developer, it takes you to this screen. Now this screen is, it doesn't look like much, and functionally it doesn't really do a lot, but it was pretty difficult to get to work because I had to take the fast sim or the field sim that I built, which simulates a game entirely, play by play, following all the rules of football and tracking the clock and the position of the ball and everything. So I had to take that worked in a loop until the end of the game into a place where you could press a button to advance the game step by step. And so that seems straightforward, but there's a lot of things that you have to kind of move around from a purely loop-based system, which again was a little confusing, but I do have it working. Prodigy says, I'll check it out. He's talking about the Discord. And he also says the UI is sweet. Could it change when you make it through the years? I thought about doing that. It's not an essential thing. It's actually a bit of work to set everything up. Considering that UI isn't just a theme, it's an actual placement of everything, it would actually be a lot of work to change the UI every few years. Maybe in some future version that might be a possibility, but for now this is what we got. So it's going to show you the player name, and the player name depends on it depends on the play. What happened? Was it a run play? Was it a kick? Was it a pass play? So we have the home field logo here. We have the home field name and the away team name. So we're currently the Quackers. Here's our logo and the name of the team. And then you got the field lines. And then you can see here the result of the play. So we can press, it gives us the kickoff as the default play. So we can just press J and then we get the next play. So it was tough enough to get, to the point where you can just advance one play at a time with a button press. It was also kind of confusing to get this to work as well. Now there's still an occasional visual bug. I'm not exactly sure what it is with this, but it's kind of rare. I think it has to do with when the game says that the field position needs to switch. Other than that, it runs well. And then the entire game does go from beginning to end without any problems. But there is an addition, there is a rare bug. I'm not sure what it is, but sometimes like the game can't advance. So I have to figure that out. But it's rare. So there's something nefarious going on with the logic. I'm not sure yet. So it's going to give you the time on the clock, the down and the distance at the field side, field position, and then Piers Ridlick is the QB for the claws, and he passes left to Ewan Huffins for no gain, and he was tackled by Levy. So I had to reference how they did Gamecasts in the past to kind of get how you actually set up the play summary to where it gives you as much information about the play with as little text as possible. Ridge City Bird, how's it going? He says, I am all for the look here. Like he said earlier, the UI is awesome. Thanks. It's not done, but it does really highlight kind of the overall feel of the game, which I am happy about. Ari, how's it going? He says, yo, yo, yo. So it gives you the play summary, and then it's going to give you the arrow or the gain on the play, and then it's going to show you the first down marker as well. So we can... So you can see here, he was, let's see, Damien Racing. Assuming that is the running back. He was tackled in the backfield. And then they ran right for 4 yards, which you can see there. And then they punt. So, and then of course you have all your stat tracking here. It's not tracking penalties right now. There are no penalties. The penalties will be based mainly on player attributes and then maybe a little bit of randomness. So like if your player is kind of, they have low composure, there's a higher chance, like for example, an offensive lineman that has low composure or whatever the attribute is, they will have a higher chance of causing like a false start or maybe causing a bad snap, which is not a penalty, but it's a bad thing that can happen, you know, pre-snap. And then maybe your defensive lineman, same thing, some attribute about them that increases the chance of causing a penalty. And that'll be generally how I do penalties. That way it's mainly dictated by player attributes. Patrick G. Mafia's in. He says, howdy, folks. Pretty soon here, Patrick, we're going to get back into some game streams. I've been pretty busy with this stuff. In a couple weeks, we'll probably have like a couple weekly streams for a little bit, just to kind of get back into the groove of doing that, because I do like playing the older games or playing, you know, just the sports games in general. But we'll get back into that at some point soon. Bridge City says, since you're mentioning composure, did you base a lot of the attributes off of the old ESPN NFL games? No. There's only 10 player attributes. Or sorry, 10 player skills. And that's like passing, blocking, running. I didn't do speed because there's no actual field, like no field engine for players to run around in. It didn't really make sense to use speed. Instead, I combined a couple different things into a running attribute. So running just means how good they are at getting yards while holding the ball. So the QBs can use running, the running backs can use running, every player can use running. So there's 10 basic skills, and we can look at that a little bit here in a second. There's skills and attributes and modifiers. So I kind of did my own thing as far as player attributes and ratings and all that. He says, much more basic, but still getting the vital ratings. It makes sense. The reason why I didn't want to have a bunch of skills is because there's a football team has like over 50 players, right? And so if you have 30 ratings or like 100 ratings on a single player, the time it takes to evaluate a player and decide, you know, what you're going to do with them is going to go up. And so it's going to increase the amount of work you have to do just to, you know, start building your roster. And so I didn't want to bog the user down with a bunch of that stuff. So instead of that, I just dwindled it down to 10. It's easy to tell, you know, what players are good at what with 10 basic skills. And the way it kind of differentiates itself from player to player is with like special abilities and traits. That way players are valuable in multiple different ways, but it doesn't take an hour to evaluate a player compared to another one, you know? Oh, here's a big play. The stats for the actual game are a little bit higher right now, and I am seeing that some of these big plays are happening a little bit too often. So, like, none of this is really tuned. My fast sim is tuned pretty well, but this field sim has to be tuned, and I think the teams are running too many plays, or there's too much time left on the clock, so there's more plays being run. And so I have to make the plays overall take longer. That way more time gets killed. And then you have about 50 to 60-ish plays per team. Let's see. So it says total plays right here for Kingston is 25. It's not even halftime yet. And they're already almost to 50, like halfway to 50. They should be, you know, not that far. So once I get the play time up a little bit, it should get the total plays in a better range to where there's not like, you know, 1,000 yards of total offense. And also there's no timeouts factored in. I need to do that as well. Not sure how that's going to work. I guess a team can call like a timeout, and then maybe the play time, you know, takes off 0 or takes off like half or something like that. So you can stop the clock selectively. It'll probably work like that. Marquee PC Gaming says, good evening, Gridiron Masters. How's it going? It also tracks time of possession. And if we press G, we can see that we can hit J to do the next play, or we can press H for autoplay. And if we do autoplay, it's going to just zoom through it pretty quickly. Now I can adjust this pace. You can tell like we're already in the 80s as far as plays. So, and I'm not sure why it's tracking turnovers, because I don't have fumbles and interceptions in there yet. So I'm not sure what is registering a fumble or interception, because those get registered as turnovers, obviously, but I don't know what the deal is. Another thing I have to do is to do health reduction and like morale change play by play as well. So health would be like, depending on the player's toughness, they have a greater or smaller chance of losing health when they get hit. So this is the QB. He passes left to Richie for no gain. So Richie's the one getting hit by Flory here. So there would be some kind of calculation based on the toughness of Richie and maybe Flory as well. That way the defense can also get injured or lose health. So depending on the toughness and chance, they have a chance of losing health. And so sometimes it'll be within a certain range, but there's a small chance of getting like critical hits. And so they might lose like 20 health on a hit. And those will be rare, but that way you can kind of balance that, or you can kind of deal with injuries a little bit. And yeah. Same thing with morale. I guess, like, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Because the player's morale needs to change during the game. That way you can do, like, in-game coaching. Like, if the team's doing pretty bad and a key player, his morale's low, you can go in and try to coach him up, do something based off of your skill, and try to get their morale back up. I'm guessing, like, maybe... I don't know if, like, I can do, like, positive play +1, negative play -1, something like that. That might be a little too much. Maybe I can do it per quarter. Like, if you're up at the end of the quarter, you gain morale. If you're down, you lose morale. If you're about even, you stay even. Right. Marquis says good. I also have the red zone, or the college style. I call it red zone shootout, but it's a college style overtime. I do have that working as well. The chances of getting an overtime just out of the blue is pretty low. I could probably... I have a button to just toggle overtime at the beginning of the game, so we can look at that here in a second too. So the game's over. We win the game because we're Kingston. We win at 33-16. And here's our stats. See, 102 total plays. That's like... we need to reduce that by like 40%. Teams that run a lot of plays in this kind of time period, like late 90s, or just 90s in general, they were probably in like the 60 range, and then lower in the 50s, maybe in the 40s. I don't know. I'll have to check actual stats for that. But so these stats aren't actually that bad. 424 total yards, 174 rushing. That's a little bit too high, but it's not that bad. So the game's over. Oh, and players also need to get experience every single play that they're in. So I haven't put that in yet as well. See, it says fumble right here. So at some point he fumbled and it didn't even... like, I don't know where I have that code in the game, so I'll have to check that out. Electric Aggie says, gig 'em. Gig 'em indeed. You can't see it, but I have my helmet over here. Right there. Just hanging on the wall. It'd be cool if I could get it in view somewhere. But... so, let's see. So I don't know if... see, this, I don't think that's adding up correctly, because I don't think that's what it said in the... at the end of the game. So maybe that... I don't know what that is, why it's adding up so much. This works. All this stat tracking worked pretty well with the fast sim, but because the field sim works differently, I have to fine tune it. So we have... I mean, these QB stats aren't that bad. That's a little high. 57 carries. Jesus. 7 receptions. This is believable right here. Quackers start the year hot. Good start out of the gate. So that's it for that. So, and that's really the main difference, you know. Everything else is the same because that's all I've been doing. Let's see. If I think Prodigy was talking about, or Bridge City was talking about the player rating. So we'll look at that real quick. I've talked about this a lot before, but because it came up, go over it. Oh, I forgot to mention about the player health. During collisions, it also checks, or it will check your damage resistance, which is set by your equipment. But right now we have 13% damage resistance. So we get shedding, catching, tackling, routes, and strength, and 13% damage resistance. So every time the player is going to lose health, let's say they lose 5 points of health, those 5 points will be reduced by 13%. It'll just use the ceiling number, whatever is closest to the top. So it might be like 1 or 2 or whatever it is. So you can see like this helmet gives you damage resistance. These pads gives you 5. The accessories gives you 1. The pants give you 3, and the cleats give you 2. So it's a simple way to kind of change how your team is set up with equipment without getting too deep into it, especially not player by player. So just to show Bridge City the player attributes and all that, we'll go into the depth chart. So you can see they have 10 skills. They have running, strength, passing, catching, routes, coverage, tackling, blocking, shedding, and kicking. Kicking is used for both punting and kicking. I used to have kicking and punting, but it just felt like such a, like, if I wanted to have as few number of skills as possible, or as few skills as possible, it didn't make sense to have such a niche skill like punting, because it can be used for nothing else. And so instead I just replaced, or I just combined it into kicking as 1, and then I used the extra skill slot for strength. So strength will be used in tackles, blocks, break tackles, and kicking, maybe even passing. Probably a lot of stuff, just to kind of have it matter across different vectors. So you can quickly look at the player skills and tell what they're good at. And then you might notice players that are good at different things. Let's see. Like, for example, this offensive lineman has 22 kicking, which for an O lineman, I guess is pretty good. I don't know if you need a 228-pound kicker, which, I mean, maybe. Never know. So you have your player skills, and then you have your traits, then you have abilities, which are situational, and then you have your modifiers. So those things are what dictate, or that's what is contained in the profile of a player. So instead of having, 30 skills or more, I think it's a simpler way to have players be different. So you have a little bit of the traditional, looking at these double-digit numbers, but then you're looking at traits, abilities, modifiers. any hidden skill that they have here. And then on top of that, you can also do abilities, coach abilities, which coach abilities and actions, which I don't have any. But this guy has one equipped. He's got XP, bonus XP, I think. This guy has a install boost, and this is from the coordinators. So you can see it's different. We'll run through another game normally. Oh, and you can see this guy Gaboro. He mentioned putting the player avatar here. That way you can tell, like, the player avatar and then like some of their relevant data. That way you can kind of get more of a visual feedback as far as what you're picking as far as the answers. We'll skip that. And just to give a peek on what I'll be doing next. So this is all dummy text. This is actually a big part of what's happening next, because this is like the game, right? This is what you're doing as far as like strategy and like calling plays and figuring out the defense. And maybe I should do a separate stream just about, you know, how I'm going to set up the rules and everything. But generally, let's see what we have here. So I think up here in the top left, this is where your input is going to be as far as like picking what to do. And it's all going to happen in this window. Everything else is just reference data. Like, this is the chance of outcome on the next play. That way you can get immediate feedback as far as like what changes to like do the formation make, you know, substituting players, moving players, you know, different play details. All of that will be relayed here in play analysis. And then here is where the player profile will be. So it's going to be their mods, their skills, and then maybe a toggle page so you can see their abilities and traits. That way when you switch to a different player in the formation, you get a complete readout of the player. And then here will be the formation stats, or like the formation ratings. So there's the roster ratings. That's like the sum of all the players in the formation. Then you have the formation ratings. And the formation ratings are like, if you have more wide receivers, the formation rating will have a higher pass rating. If you have like more tight ends and running backs, it'll be a higher running. And then that's basically how that's going to work. And if you have more blockers, your blitz rating will be higher. I guess it'll say block for offense. So you'll be better against a blitz as the offense with more blockers, and then as a defense with more blitzers, you have a higher blitz rating. Games for You says, yo, how's it going? Made it in time for your stream. I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself? And then here it's going to tell you stats about the specific position in the formation. Now, you don't have to like meticulously look at all these numbers all the time, every single play, but really this is the big, these two are the big ones that are gonna probably be used the most. Of course, you have your tendencies over here, and this will be the tendencies of the other team's play caller. So what percentage of the time do they call run? What percentage of the time do they call pass? The general percentage distribution for the ranges of the passes they typically throw. So short range, medium, long, great, huge. And then same kind of thing for the run plays. So you got your run left, right. And then there's 5 run types: inside, outside, toss, sweep, stretch. And that just means like how far out towards the sideline the play goes. And that'll change. I originally planned the run types to change like the weight of which defensive positions get tested. Like if you run to the outside a lot more, the defensive line isn't going to matter as much compared to like the defensive backs and the linebackers. I don't know if I'm gonna like still have that hard coded in, because I actually have distance from the play taken into account with the grid, which you can't see here, but I can show you the grid in the formation subs. But defenders that are that have more cells of distance in the grid to the attack point of the play, they're less likely to be the tackler. And so you kind of have distance factored in that way. So maybe I don't need to factor that in like hard coded. It's a little weird because when you have abstract football like this, you kind of have to really nail down what everything means, because you don't have your regular geographical position to dictate everything. You kind of have to define everything. Games for You says, I'm feeling tired and stressed. Me too. I'm sorry that you feel that way. So up here in the top left, it'll show you formations. So your formations will be here, and then it's going to show you run. Like once you pick your formation, it'll ask you run or pass. If you pick pass, it's going to give you your receiver options. It's kind of hard to show you without the grid, but I'll get the grid up here in a second. It shows you your receiver options, and then you can switch the tight ends and running backs to routes as well if you want. But they default to blocking. And then for running, it's going to ask you run direction, left or right. And then it's going to ask you which of these 5 run types do you want: stretch, sweep, toss, outside, or inside. And that's really it. As far as like the actual play calling system, it's mostly going to be about trying to use the tendencies to predict what the defense is going to do. So generally, as the offense, you're setting an attack point, and there's different things that are attack points. Routes are attack points, and the run lane is an attack point. And then as a defense, you have to try to guess what it is using this stuff and everything you know about the other team. So it's hard to show you without like all this stuff actually being there. Let me go to the end of the game real quick, and then go into the formation subs, because I have the grid there. And then we can or the formation editor actually. You can go into there and show the grid and show you how it works, or what my plan is. What I'm basically doing is I'm trying to make a board game type of game experience. Later on down the road, like if none of this can be like tested and refined and made to work in a fun and interesting way, then I'll just make it to where it's just like a regular real-time engine. The problem with that is I don't want to do it alone. It's a lot of work. So this game's over. Let's go over here to strategy. I don't think I've shown this on stream yet, the edit formations. Yeah, I don't think I have. So so here's the formations in our formation set. The limit is 8 by default, and then as you increase your tactics skills, you can have more formations. But you can see, okay. All right, so this is the offensive side of the grid. So we can move these guys around if we want. You can try to you can get an idea of like how this abstract formation system works by looking at these stats and looking at these stats here. So I had to define like the quarterback position to mean something. So like sack chance is highest when he's under center because he's closest to the defense, and sack chance is lowest when he's as far back as here because he's farthest from the defense. But then I had to balance that with something else, and so I had to do pass gain and run gain. So if he's closer to the line of scrimmage, he has a higher chance of gaining a run. And then I guess the same thing for the pass gain, because he's in shotgun. He has some advantage to passing there. So you can see like this is just with respect to like ranges and run blocking to the right, to the left, all that stuff. All that changes depending on their position in the formation. But what I've basically done is I've just turned the formation into a switchboard, basically. Because again, there's no actual field that they run around in. So all this stuff has to mean something. I don't know why the running back's way over there. But you can put them in the backfield, or you can split them out here if you want. And that will get you some, I think, pass gain, I think is what it is. It's been a while since I looked at this. It's something having to do with passing. All right, so let's see. So here's the defensive side. So Little Sarge says, how's it going? Patrick said, oh, Patrick responds. So let's look at the 4-2, which is the nickel. Okay, so it's a little bit easier to show you how the attack points are going to work here because I actually have the grid up. So imagine this red square as the primary receiver of the offense, or the running lane that the running back is going to go to. So if I have, let's say, 3 wide receivers as the offense, the first receiver I'm going to set is going to be the primary receiver. So think of if you've ever played Battleship and you're trying to kind of place an attack point on the grid, that's basically what you're doing. So you place one attack point that is the actual pass target. That'll be your primary receiver. Let's say it's like right here. And because I have 2 other receivers, I have to set other attack points. So let's say I put one here. Let's say I put one like over here. And so as the defense, all I see are those 3 cells. Like I see that one, I see the one I put over here, and I see the one over here. And so as the defense, you have to kind of use the offensive tendencies and balance that with like the danger of the situation or the needs of the situation to try to guess which one of those is the primary receiver or the actual attack point of the play. If you guess it correctly, you get a significant boost to the defensive outcome or the defensive performance. If you don't guess correctly, you don't get any penalty. So you can kind of see how just with that system, if you know that the offensive play caller likes throwing deep a lot and he has attack points up here in the deep range, you're going to take note of that and you're going to say, you know, he's probably, the chances are high that he's going deep, so I'm going to pick the deep one. Or if he likes to throw to the middle a lot, like if he throws a lot of passes to the center of the field, which is going to be here, and there's an attack point in the center, you might pick that one. If he likes passing to the left a lot, you might pick the one on the left. The same thing for running. Running's a little bit different because you don't get to set the attack point as dynamically as a wide receiver or as a receiver. I think the way it's going to work is if we're running to the left, this lane will be an inside run. This will be outside. This will be toss. This will be sweep, and this will be stretch. And it's all going to be in the third row here in the middle. So all run play attack points show up here. So if you see one here, there's a good chance, there's some chance that it's a run play. And so like if you see one here, then maybe he's going to the he's running to the inside, and you can look at the offensive tendencies that way. Patrick says E5 Battleship. Yeah, it's grid based. It's really the only way to get like spatial gameplay without having an actual real-time engine. So that's how that's going to work as far as like routes. Attack points or just routes. So let's say you throw it here. This guy, this defensive back is going to be the one most likely to make the tackle, but he's not guaranteed to make the tackle. The next most likely one is going to be this guy. And then the one after that might be this guy or this guy. Defensive linemen are not going to be a factor because they're too slow. And then everyone else over here is pretty unlikely to make the tackle. So you can see how the player who is over here matters, because like depending on his tackling rating and everything as a whole is going to dictate how far the play actually goes or how short it goes. Is it caught? Is it not caught? Right? All that matters. And then for the defense, like your play setup is you pick a defensive formation. You pick a defensive formation, and then let's say I know they're going to pass. So I go 3-3 here. What I pick first is my shell. So I can go cover 0 to 4. And that's going to set the formation pass rating. So the formation itself has a certain strength and weakness to pass or run or blitz. And so you kind of have to balance between formation and then roster. I think roster is weighted heavier. It's like, I think it's like 60-40 or I forget what it is. It might not be that high, but roster does weigh the most, and formation is like after that. So you pick your shell. You might pick cover 3 in a formation like this. You might pick cover 2, right? So you pick your shell, and then you pick your blitz. All the defensive linemen by default blitz, and you can't change that. But if you wanted to add like this guy to the blitz, you would just toggle him as blitz. That would be a 4-man rush. If you wanted to add a second linebacker, now you have 5. If you wanted to throw in the defensive back, you know, and have 6. But the more guys that you blitz, the more vulnerable you're going to be to the pass, because you're not going to have those guys in coverage. So that's going to matter. And that's really it for defense. You pick your shell, you pick your blitz, if any, and then you just try to guess the attack point of the offense. And that's really the gist of the game loop. And then you'll try to, like, you know, maybe make substitutions to try to get an edge or get a package in that you like, or, you know, try to coach players during the game to get their morale up and all that stuff. Something I might add is being able to make an adjustment, like a small adjustment to the formation before the play, and maybe make that dependent on player skills. So maybe if you wanted to move your defensive backs all down one cell, you know, maybe you can do that. You wanted to move your linebackers up or down, or move your defensive lineman out, or something. Something to where you can think about minor adjustments, but not like a full-blown formation editor. Games for You says, sounds like chess with football players, and see how the simulation AI reads it well. Yeah, it is grid-based like chess. It's something that's not really done. And so this is kind of all uncharted territory. There's some obscure football board games that do something vaguely similar, that have some kind of positioning in their game. Other than that, even all the football board games are all abstracted, like just calling plays that are based off of stats and like dice rolls. None of them really have, or there's only a couple that have positional game design. This is all, just trying to design a game all in itself. And so it's a challenge. I think it's simple enough to where it'll be strategically interesting. It'll give you enough of that sense of strategy and back and forth with the AI to where games will be fun and still pretty quick. And it'll be based off of all your player attributes, all the tendencies of the other team, all wrapped up into a fairly simple package. We won't know until we actually get user input into the game and actually be able to test that system out. I did a little bit of play testing on paper, and it seemed interesting. I know I'll make adjustments once we actually get to the actual testing with the testing group. But it's something that'll have to be refined. Worst case scenario, if I just can't make the system work, I don't think I have the time to like come up with something different. I'll probably just get rid of the whole grid thing for now, and then just I want to have something for actual games and not just rely purely on FastSim. So I might have something that's like slider based, like increase your if you want to focus more on pass, you slide more on the pass slider, just to where it's something. I don't want to just have nothing. But I think this system was going to work with some refining. So yeah, that's the formation editor too. You guys pretty much saw all of that. Some of these formations are wacky. Oh, and you can also rename them. I want to say fun. Formation. Fun form. There it is, fun form. And we can auto name it. So that's really the gist of what's been going on. This is the Gamecast. Whoops. I keep hitting this mic. This arm is very weak as well. Mic's kind of heavy. So this doesn't look like much. As the person who is testing this, they just see the plays go by. They don't see all the headache that it took to get here. But, I mean, that's true for game development in general, so. I do like how the drive progress turned out. Like, it's simple, but it's visually appealing. I thought about having all these lines, or having these on the field. Maybe I'll do that, but I feel like it's pretty good here. Like, it has a lot of contrast. It's simple enough. Maybe I'll add the extra field lines, but I don't need it. Oh yeah, I forgot to show the overtime part. So we'll let this finish. And I'm not drinking wine, by the way. I always reuse these bottles. Got here. Can we get this without a glare? It says Pellegrino. It's pure water. Or whatever else is in the water. Okay. What I have to do is let me go to Gamecast. We toggle test overtime. So that's on. Assuming I didn't break anything since last time I tested this, which wasn't that long ago, this should work. Okay, so it says first OT. We are at the 25. Touchdown on 3rd and 9. PAT. Then they start. Both teams start. They each have a possession on the same side of the field. So there's a -4. Ran left for 7. No gain. So 3rd and 7. They're in trouble here. 4th and 7. Turnover on downs. So that should be game over. It should say game over right as the game-ending drive finishes. I'll have to fix that. So we can just reset it and see what happens. This time, Miner got a field goal. Okay, field goal. So they're tied at 3. So they switch sides. They're over on the left side. 3rd and 5. Uh-oh, field goal missed. So now the other team has a chance to win. Ran right. First down. Gain of 1. Gain of 6. 3rd and 3. Oh, first down, though. They're probably going to win. No gain. Touchdown. And because it's overtime, there's no PAT. I don't have the requirement to force 2-point conversions after the second overtime. I actually think that wasn't a rule until 99. 1999. So it's period appropriate. So you can go for 1 or 2 at any point in the overtime. I'd also have this is the red zone college style the red zone shootout, which is college style overtime. I'm gonna have sudden death overtime for the NFA, the Pro League. And then I also have this crazy idea. It's never been done, but I think it would be cool just as an option to have a field goal shootout as an overtime thing. So imagine the first team gets it at the 5, so they basically kick an extra point. The chances of them missing is pretty low, but it can happen. So they're kind of playing horse. I don't think horse is the right. What's that game where you in basketball, like you shoot it from a part of the field, and if you make it and the other guy doesn't make it, you win. It would actually be kind of cool to be able to set where you want to start. Or maybe even to play like horse just in general. Not horse. I don't think that horse is the right name. Maybe it is. But, so, the way I envisioned it is you start at the 5. Let's say both teams make it, you go to the 10. Both teams make it, you go to the 15. Or maybe you go up by 10 instead of 5. Do like 10, 20, 30. So eventually, once you start hitting like the 25, 30, 40 range, somebody's probably gonna miss. Or if what might be exciting is if they're like at the 35 or the 40, and like both teams go like 3 rounds and they keep hitting these field goals. You know, once you get to like 45, 50, it's very hard to make these long range field goals. I think that would be exciting. Not realistic, you know, it's never existed in a football league, but just to have that as like an option that you can toggle somewhere at the beginning of a career or something, I think that'd be cool. Because, you know, your kicker becomes, instead of like an afterthought, he becomes a tiebreaker. So I want to have those 3 overtime rules. And I think that's it, really. Ugh. I think I've gone... See, this doesn't make any sense. Something has to be off. Oh, wait, no. Never mind. That is because we ran overtime. That is why. Yes, so... I don't think there's really anything else to show as far as the Gamecast. I've shown the actual Gamecast. I've shown a little bit of the tactical view. That is what I'll be doing next. I showed a little bit as far as how I think the actual play calling system is going to work. I showed a little bit of the formation editor as well, just by extension. I think that's really it. Unless anyone has any questions, I'll probably end up calling it here. Actually, we'll give this a second just in case anybody jumps in. I actually wanted to show just a little bit my side project. My side project is, it's called Pocket Coach 97. It's kind of like a prequel to this game. It's a side project, so I don't spend a lot of time on it, but it's for mobile. It's not a mobile game as far as like mobile game design, but it's a game that's playable on the phone. So that's what I mean by a mobile game. I don't think there's going to be any questions, so we'll close out this project. And save this. Go to project list. All right. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just to kind of... I do have updates in my Discord about this side project. Okay. Switch the screen. Where is our screen? Here it is. God. Okay, so that's how that's going to look on the screen. All right, so this is Pocket Coach 97. It's going to be for the phone. I do like this UI style. I'm very, very tempted to move this to GM98 because it's a little bit like we haven't seen this type of UI style in a game before. I don't know, but I do like how this looks. I have the moving background and everything. The scrolling is still going on, everything. CSP and Newsline. So let me... You guys didn't see anything, but I'm going to show you the output of the console here. This one. No. That. Close this engine. Okay. All right, so just to go over this as quickly as possible, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but the idea behind this game is that there's no players. The teams just have player ratings. I don't know if you can see, for example, I have Conference America printing right now, so that's a college conference. So the teams just have they have position ratings instead of players. And there's no cap on the player ratings. And so the idea behind this game is to have very fast career arcs. Like if you were to play nonstop, you could probably get through an entire career maybe in 2 or 3 hours. And so the idea is that all the teams have position ratings, and you as the coach, you use your skills to manipulate these ratings. And so you have like recruiting, your coordinators are position stat boosters, basically. And you would have the 3 levels of football as well: high school, college, and pro. But the thing about it is that because there's no players, it should play pretty quickly. And I like the idea because it takes the player evaluation out of it, and it kind of abstracts it out to just team ratings or position ratings. And so it's going to be pure number hunting, basically. It's actually kind of a lot to get through, so I won't go through it all. But that's the gist of this game. You still have contracts. You know, it's still set in the 90s, obviously. But what I'm doing with this as well is I'm kind of using it as a programmatic reboot of GM98, because there's certain systems structurally in Gridiron Masters that either because I was kind of just learning the engine months ago, or because I'm still learning programming as well, that some of the systems have kind of gotten away from me and they're a little bit hard to maintain and expand upon. A great example is the season cycle. Like I wrote a great or a much improved season cycle logic in this project compared to the way it works in GM98. And there's a lot of things like that in this project, like the scene structure, for example, which I can show. So if you can see up here, you have the main scene, which never is destroyed. It's like the game. And then you have base and slide. The way it works in GM98 is the main scene is the base scene. So imagine base were up here. And so you have base and then slide. And so the slides get switched out. Like it could be like roster or formations or whatever. And they have the base scene in the background. The problem with that is the way sounds work in the engine, or at least the way I made them work, is that they're tied to a specific node, which is the room. And so sounds are persistent as long as you don't destroy the base scene, but I have it to where sometimes I need a different base scene. For example, when the screen switches from the 16:9 aspect ratio to like the fake 4:3 aspect ratio, that's a different base scene. And so when that happens, if there's a sound playing, it gets destroyed. And it seems obvious now to have an extra scene under that where everything is put. And so the speaker is attached to the main scene. And so the sounds are persistent. That's just an easy example of the actual structure of the scenes compared to GM98 to the way I did it here. And I'm definitely going to do this in GM98 once I get around to it. So it's just little things like that, or like the season cycle, or certain aspects. It's just better written. And so I'm kind of using this project to kind of go back and redo some of the foundational logic without having to do that inside of GM98 and potentially mess things up. So that's it. I know this last part wasn't that interesting, but I guess I could have had that going the whole time. But that's a little bit what I'm doing as far as Pocket Coach and everything else. So I think that's gonna do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll be seeing you guys in